Good evening. Welcome to this episode of the Beyond COVID-19 webcast dedicated to Guinea and hosted by No Peace Without Justice. In this particular time, everyone's eyes are on the COVID-19 emergency, rightfully so. The emergency presents us with new challenges which have a deep impact on global politics and society. While our daily lives may feel like they are somewhat on hold, human rights violations have not been suspended. On the contrary, they may even intensify due to the implication of this pandemic. Guinea is a shining example of the instrumentalization of the health crisis to try to stifle any form of opposition. No Peace Without Justice decided to organize a weekly panel discussion to not forget about important human rights violations issues, raise awareness, and bringing them directly to people's houses for easily accessible social media. Before we start, I invite you to visit the No Peace Without Justice website on npwj.org and to follow them on social medias. On the English Facebook page, No Peace Without Justice, NPWJ, the Italian page, Non c'è pace senza giustizia. On Twitter, you can follow them with NPWJ Press, on Instagram with NPWJ_. And of course, on YouTube, you just have to search No Peace Without Justice, NPWJ. You can watch and rewatch this panel discussion on YouTube, and I highly invite you to share or comment on this event on social medias by using the hashtag #BeyondCovid19. I'm particularly appreciative of the interest and attention that the NGO No Peace Without Justice gives to the human rights violations in Guinea, and your commitment to work for the promotion of democracy, rule of law, and democratic alternation. I'm Nadia, Nahman, Chief of Staff for the President of the Union of Democratic Forces of Guinea, UFDG, and I'm also activist of the National Front for the Defense of the Constitution, the FNDC. I'm absolutely delighted to be part of this event along with very committed people in their field. Today, we'll talk about Guinea with the topic, Guinea, atrocities in the name of state. I will ask the panelists to briefly introduce themselves. We will have with us today Abdoul, Kader, Makanera, Mamoudzou, Nagnalen, and William Bourdon. We will join us at the very end of the video conference to talk about the written report he made to the ICC to denounce the serious and repeated violations of human rights in Guinea, which can be qualified as crimes against humanity. So, please, Kader, can you briefly introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. Hi, Nadia. Thanks for having me here. My name is Abdoul Kader Makanera. I am also Chief of Staff of UFR President Sidia Toure in Guinea, which is the second largest opposition party in Guinea. And I'd like to, well, I'm more of I have a finance background, so I'm not going to go into that. But I am one of those people who came home from abroad, as most of us are. 16 years old already, I wasn't here. So, but watching the country from abroad, you feel like, you know, you have to go do something, and not knowing the details. Most people did say, you know, it's more complicated than you thought, but I always thought there was something. I never thought about, you know, getting involved in politics in any way, but came back at some point in 2013, created a couple of companies here, hired over 100 people here. I was teaching also in the biggest university in this country, because I really wanted to participate in the economy, knowing full well what the impact of economic growth and advancement is for society. Because once people have economic and financial freedom, they tend to ask for the other freedoms. If you keep them from accessing economic freedom, they'll have always in the basic needs, fighting for those not having time to claim other freedoms that are necessary for human growth. So I'm on this platform, following a chain of events, and I'm very happy to be here today and discuss these issues. And I once again thank the NGO NPWJ for having us, for hosting us, and giving us this platform to expose what happens in this relatively small country in the world. We're very small, comparatively, relatively small, 12 million people, but it's a country that's been suffering for a very long time. It's a people that never, ever stopped fighting from the beginning of time, always struggling to get ahead. But one of those unlucky countries that once the people happen to get over one obstacle, another one comes up. So people look at Guinea and say, what's wrong with you? No, nothing is wrong with us. Some other people have fought less than us and have gotten ahead. Unfortunately, we still have to keep the fight, and we will keep the fight, and the people always prevail, and we expect that. Thank you for the platform, and we'll have the time to develop it more. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kader, for this brief introduction. Please, and now I'm going to give the floor to Mamoudzou Bari. Please, Mamoudzou Bari, can you briefly introduce yourself, please?
Thank you, Nadia. Good morning, everyone here. I'm Mamoudzou Nagnalen. I'm an activist of the National Front for the Defense of the Constitution, the FNDC. I can say about 6 months ago, I was not interested on anything happening in the political field in Guinea. I was not even an active part of the civil society organization. But when we realized that Mr. Alpha Condé is trying to hold up our democracy, we realized that we cannot sit around that, and we need to fight. No matter what you are doing, no matter where you live, if you are Guinean, we believe that we need to do this fight because this is our final fight. Before that, I have been teaching economics in private and public universities in Guinea, and I've been working with various international organizations. Lately based in Washington, D.C., but I'm in Guinea because this fight is my fight, it's the fight for my kids, it's the fight for my grandkids, and we're gonna win this fight.
Thank you very much, Mamoudzou. It's important to continue by giving to the viewers an overview of the situation in the Republic of Guinea. The Republic of Guinea is going through a difficult and a critical time. As you mentioned earlier, both of you, the future of 12 million of Guineans is at stake. After 9 years of presidency, the President Alpha Condé changed the constitution of its country 8 months before the end of his second and last term of office, with the sole aim of being able to run for a third term at the age of 83 years. The same constitutions that sat in stone since 2010, the limitation of 2 terms per president. His agenda for a third term has ignited and exacerbated a very tense socio-political situation, which has led to massive, serious, and systematic violation of human rights in Conakry and throughout the country. On October 2019, civil society organizations, political parties, non-profit trade unions, lawyers, artists gathered and launched a conglomerate called FNDC, the National Front for the Defense of the Constitution, in order to protect the Constitution, to protect the democracy, to protect the rule of law. This coalition organized massive peaceful demonstrations that mobilized several millions people each time in the streets of Conakry and in several large cities in the countryside. The police repression of this demonstration resulted in around 100 deaths, more than 300 people injured by gunfire, thousands of arrests, and massive destructions of properties, including places of worship. The arrival of Alpha Condé to power and his desire to grant himself a life presidency has increased the intensification of repression in Guinea and establish the reign of impunity that existed. Indeed, no investigation has ever been carried out to identify and punish the perpetrator of these crimes, and no administrative sanction has ever been taken against a police or gendarmerie official since 2010. The government, in its fight against FNDC, has gone beyond all reasonable limits. It has not only sent its killers in houses to gun down children and housewives, it has fired on hearses during funeral processions and fired tear gas in mosques and cemeteries. Mr. Conde has pushed the cynicism to the point of sending the bodies of victims of police repression back from public hospitals morgues and burning churches in Zérekore on March 2020. So now I would like to give the floor to one of our brilliant speakers, Abdoul Kader Makanera, to speak about a very interesting topic, the state terrorism and state rebellion, and the necessity for citizens to stand up for social justice for the sake of peace and stability. Mr. Abdoul Kader Makanera will also focus on the justification for keeping up the resistance, especially when human rights lives have been taken or maimed by the oppressor. Please, Kader, can you take the floor, please?
Yeah, thanks again for the opportunity to take the floor and express myself on these topics. So the FNDC's presentation was brilliant, and it covered almost all the aspects of it. And most people that interact with Guinea in one way or the other know what the struggle has been, because it's been a very I won't say long, because there are struggles that have been going on for decades, but we have been short, because since October 2019, April 2019, but it's been a very, very hard and a very loud fight. So because of that, the entire world has heard about it. It's been a very violent fight, not of our doing, but of the state's doing, because protests happen everywhere. We're witnessing one of the biggest protests in human history right now in the reference country, that's the United States. We've been watching it, and it's a country that has more weaponry than Guinea will ever have. But they have states decide on how they want to be seen and how they want to handle things. The protesters, the citizens don't decide. They just ask for their rights to be respected. They ask to be given what is theirs. That's the only thing they'll ask for, because the states are decided and determined and created normally by these citizens, because it's of the wish of the people that the republic is created. So that's why the idea of state terrorism and rebellion, to me, is fundamental, because we have to understand this idea first. We have to make ourselves comfortable with the concept that citizens are the bosses of the republic. They are in a republic or a kingdom, or what they decide the form is. And then people are selected to lead that, okay? And these people are supposed to be obeying the wishes of the people that's elected them, which is the citizenry and the nation in general. So when we are comfortable with the concept that the citizen is the boss and the holders of the real powers to drive policies by which they wish to be governed, then we can understand easily that from that postulate, when any body of government tries to confiscate undue power, the powers that they have not been given, because every citizen, every country, every people retain some of the powers for themselves. They say, we have a constitution, this and this and this and that is what our governors can do and authorities can do, and this, we decide that. So when they try to grab undue power, this can be as rebellion against their bosses that are the people. and action must be taken to reinstate the rule of law and clearly delineate, differentiate the roles of each and every one. This is where the lack of education in our countries is hurtful to the progress, to democratic progress, because people actually see the government as the big brother. And we have a saying here that they call the president all the time. This bothers me that they say the father of the nation. It creates a mentality of obedience. That meaning that people just have to obey their father. Because we all grew up in the beginning, before we get our differences with our parents, saying, Dad, I don't agree with you. You first grew up obeying your father and your mother. So when they say this is the father of the nation, in the subconscious of the person, it triggers something, says, oh, that's my father, I'm supposed to obey. Even this could be religious leaders or anyone. So this could be said to an intellectual, he'll understand that it's just a sign of respect, but it has nothing to do with the limitations of the power. So as I was saying, now, when the state decides to grab undue power, to do things that they're not allowed to do under the Constitution, that is the bedrock of every society. This is the only referential that they have. This is the only, you are president because our Constitution said you are president. Once you don't respect that Constitution, you have no right to ask for respect. You don't exist without that, because otherwise you're just another citizen. So beyond that, what becomes state terrorism is when there are some factions of the society who have had the chance to have access to higher education and who want to educate the rest of the population, saying that, oh, he's overstepping the boundaries. He's going beyond the limits that we allocated to him, or they are doing that. The government is, I'm saying, you know, and they try to wake people up like the FNDC is doing. We have woken up more people that they can ever wake up. We have a movement that they have never been and will never be able to. They tried to match us. We saw it here. They gave a lot of money to try to get people out the way we do. It didn't work. I don't know if the people can hear me, but I'm just gonna keep going on. Can you guys hear me? Am I being heard? Hello?
Yes, you are.
Okay, good, perfect. So state terrorism is when the state decides that it wants to force the people to accept its overstepping of the boundaries. By doing what? By using the means that they have to do violence, to do harm on the people that actually entrusted them with the means. Because anything that they have because we paid for it. And when they take that and return it against the people that are asking for reinstatement of the roles of each and every one, it becomes an intent. It becomes an intent to terrorize people. This is where they're not terrorizing just because they want to kill, to defend the power grab that they have done. And they hate the people that draw attention on that, saying that, no, you have your limits, like in our case. This guy
may I interrupt you, please? I would like to ask you a question. How could it be possible to stop the massacre of people of Guinea, keeping in mind the upcoming presidential elections, you know, because the only source of legitimacy of this power is military. So how, when we go and take the streets and our peaceful protest can help us to protect the Constitution with our own hands?
Yes, I will answer that question by stepping back a little bit into history. Under the first president and the first regime in this country, we denote more deaths than we do in the second regime. People that protested were systematically essentially killed. It was blatant. It wasn't even hidden. People were hung on bridges and stuff. During the second regime, things evolved a little bit. It was a bit hidden. They take people and they put them in mass graves and stuff just to hide, you know, stuff. But people never stopped fighting. This guy came. Before this guy, we had in 2009 a massacre. Also, we didn't give up. This is unfortunately the struggle that we have. That we've been dealt. This is the hand that we've been dealt. We have to keep fighting. You're not going to say that because they are using violence. Violence won't stop violence. It just has to be strength, inner strength. We have to keep fighting. Show them that killings will never do it. You know, violence will not stop us. You do what you do, but we will prevail on you, over you. We will win, and we will change this, and this will end. So this is my message. It's a hard message, but we have to be students of history. Every single place that we have seen successful struggles, like India, like the US, like other places, like South Africa with Nelson Mandela, it was the strength, the personal strength, the strength of character of the people. It's not responding a thug with thuggishness, because they are thugs. When they are going out killing you, you take weapons, you're gonna end up killing some of the innocent people. So being patriot, being people who really want the rule of law, you use the law. It may cost you more. It's easier just to hit back. But you know what? You are stronger than the person in front of you. So you keep up the fight, you keep up strong. He hits you, you say, yeah, I'm down, you hit me, I fall, but I will always get up until you stop. You will never be able, and then at some point, they will stop. And when they stop, the most important part of this is not that this guy stops. It's just that the guy coming after will not do it because he knows it doesn't work. It does not work.
Okay, thank you very much, Kader, for this brilliant contribution. So you can you can bring additional information to this very interesting presentation you made. So now I'm going to give the floor to a second brilliant speaker, Mamoudzou Nagnalen, who is going to talk about the use of infected prisons by the government for intimidating social activists and political leaders, and to talk against a careless dictatorship deploying its strategy despite the COVID-19 crisis. Saving democracy is an imperative. Mamoudzou, can you hear me?
Yeah. Hello, Nadia. Yes, I can.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no peace without justice. This name is says everything. And we really thank you for giving us this platform to confirm this naming of your NGO, your institution. So I will start by saying that I'm one of the people who elected Mr. Alpha Condé as president of Guinea, because we believed in his ability to bring the positive change we have been seeking for decades. We thought that we will have economic prosperity, we will have development, we will have democracy. Because Mr. Condé suffered from the two previous regimes, from dictatorship, and we believe that he was the guy who would bring us democracy. But we don't understand. We don't even think he's the man we voted for. He doesn't look like a person we listened to decades ago. He doesn't look like the person who was telling us what is the benefit of democracy. What we see today is that Mr. Condé wants to stay on power, and he's willing to do whatever it takes to stay on power. He's willing to kill his people. He's willing to use a health crisis for deploying his SARS strategy. So I will focus my point on two areas. I work with FNDC, which is the National Front fighting this guy. We are using peaceful ways to fight his violence, but we can tell you and tell the world that we're going to win this fight. We're not going to let anyone take back our democracy. We fought for it. I was at the stadium in 2009 against the military coup for having this democracy. I was injured in 2009 for this democracy, and I'm willing to do the sacrifice for pushing Mr. Alpha Condé to leave us with our democracy. So today I will talk about 2 points. The first point will be how Mr. Condé and his guys are using the COVID-19 in the prisons for intimidating us. They are basically telling us that if you don't stop fighting, we're going to put you in jail without any trial. And when you get in jail, there is COVID-19 in the jails. You might die of COVID-19. That's what they are doing. So 2 weeks ago, over 70 confirmed cases of COVID-19 were recorded in the main prison of Conakry. From media, we have heard that there are only 70 beds for the patients in the prison, while we have got over 1,500 prisoners. There is only 70 beds in the prison. So when they started testing and they reached 70 confirmed cases, they stopped testing the prisoners. Now they are not doing any new testing because they know that they don't have the capacity to welcome the new cases. So in that context, you know that if you go to the prison, you are very likely to be contaminated with the virus. So recently, he has arrested 2 of our colleagues of the coordination of FNDC. Our colleague Omar Silla was arrested and put to jail without any trial. And a few days later, our colleague Sheikh Yaya was also illegally arrested and put on jail without a proper trial. It's important at this level.
Sorry to interrupt you, dear Mamadou. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Can you please tell us a little bit about the case of Sheikh Yaya? Because it's important to mention that there is a favorable decision of justice which has not been executed, which has not been respected.
Very sadly, I was coming to this point. But before that, I wanted to note that first, the government has decided to close all the courts because of COVID. But the government is still arresting people. You know, you cannot try them, you are arresting them and putting them in jail. And they are not hiding. None of us in FNDC has been hiding. We are willing to take the responsibility. If you want to put us in jail, just take us. We are not scared of the jail. While we are not hiding, why are you arresting people and putting them in jail without trial? And 2 more things to say about Sheikh Yaya. Sheikh Yaya first has a very weak health system. He is not feeling well, despite that he was arrested with no trial. And when nos avocats, how do I call it?
Lawyer.
Went to defend him, and we got the approval of a court to give him his freedom. But still, Mr. Alpha Conde is saying no to the justice system because he wants our guys to be kept in the prison in order to intimidate us people who are not in jail and who are fighting him. But we are trying to tell Mr. Alpha Conde, we have got folks who have died in this fight. We have got over 100 of people who have been killed by Mr. Conde. We are not scared of you. We are not scared of your guns. We are not scared of your prison, and we are not scared of the COVID-19. So this is the first message we are telling Mr. Conde. He thought that when he arrested our colleagues, we would have stopped fighting. But we tell him we will not stop fighting until the day he stops this third mandate project. So the second point I would like to say something about is how important it is to keep the fight. Because to us, fighting for democracy is more important than any other fight. First reason, without democracy, there is no good governance. Without governance, there is no good road, there is no good health system, there is no good education system. If there is no road, you have accidents, people are being killed every day. If there is no health system, simple sicknesses are leading to death. And the most important, again, is how the lack of democracy can lead us to a civil war. So, and that civil war can cause more death than any health crisis. That's why we believe that doing this fight is as much important as fighting for COVID. So when COVID started, we decided to suspend all the activities on the ground in order to avoid higher exposition to the COVID-19. But Mr. Alpha Conde didn't stop. He tried to benefit from the crisis, and he was trying to grasp as much as he can from the crisis. He decided to hide the existing cases and organize their electoral phase. the electoral masquerade in March 22nd. And he also decided to put the illegal parliaments into office by gathering close to 200 people in one room, while it was forbidden to gather more than 20 people in one area. And Mr. Conde is still arresting our colleagues, arresting our friends. So he is not stopping anything for the COVID. He is rather trying to use it. That's why we have come to the conclusion that fighting a dictatorship is very important. So saying democracy is more important. That's why now, with 30 people killed on the March 22nd by Mr. Alpha Conde, we have realized that he is killing more people than the COVID-19. So far in Guinea, we have less than 30 people killed by COVID-19 since the beginning. Mr. Alpha Conde in his government killed 30 people in one night. We even believe that, many people believe that he killed more than 100 people on March 22nd because he had this mass burial in the common grave somewhere in Zerekure. No one knows how many people they buried in that common grave. So we think that Mr. Alpha Conde has to bury his dead mandate instead of burying our colleagues, our friends. So the FNDC believes that this fight will not stop if Alpha Conde doesn't stop it. So if he thinks we will stop fighting because there is COVID-19, we have to recall him, to tell him that he is the president of Guinea, and he is the one who should stop his strategy, his bad strategy, his plan to kill democracy in Guinea, his plan to kill Guinean people. So we'll stop here for now, and we'll take some questions later. Thank you.
Thank you very much, dear Mamadou, for your brilliant expose. You put a great emphasis on the instrumentalization of this health crisis by the government to try to stifle any form of opposition. We know that a lot of NGOs such as Human Rights Watch and Amnesty International denounced the kidnapping and sequestration by the security forces of FNDC members outside any legal procedure. Several dozen young people have been arrested in this condition, and they were held in a military camp of Soronkoni. We all know this story. So now we'll get back to Kader, maybe for the final word, because I do know that there's a lot to say about Guinea. It's a lot to say about this very sad human rights violation, but it will be the end of our discussion panel. So Kader, please, can you give your message to the people of Guinea? What will be your final say, your final word, please?
Thank you again. I am just gonna, please bear with me. I'm just gonna, because every time one has to question always oneself whether the fight is worth it. So when it's so hard, where it's much easier to, well, it's just much easier to give in. We have obligations to ourselves and to the people that come after us, which are our children and grandchildren coming up. You can't let injustice go undenounced. That's not what people do. We're here to fight, to maintain the peace, solidarity, and economic well-being. So what it usually starts with what? Just little complaints, denunciations, civil disobedience, policy changes by the ballot, by voting, of course, always through elections. And this we have done, we have tried, and FNDC, but well before FNDC, different political parties here fought in 2013, from 2010 to 13, just for legislative elections, proper elections, impossible. After that, it was local elections, and people got killed at every step. So when that's not enough, what do? Start talking about protests and demonstrations. And here, I'm an avid reader of and a disciple of Martin Luther King. So I'll just go over some of his quotations here to address the protests and demonstrations. And he says that injustice one place, anywhere, with any one person, is a threat to justice everywhere. Even if you personally are doing well, most of us here, I'll tell you, I, Nadia, and Mamoudzou, we're not necessarily suffering of what we're complaining of. But you can't sit in your comfort and not fight for the comfort of all. So injustice, one place is a threat to justice everywhere. We must not allow the creative protest, though, to generate into physical violence. And that every human being, every human conviction must decide on the protest that best suits their convictions. But every single person must protest at some point. And to continue, people accuse us of, they're rioting, they're rioting. If you look at the little history that we have done every single thing necessary. Nadia and I know this, and Mr. Mamadou also knows, because we're in meetings, very sensitive meetings. No one ever wants to put anyone on the street if you know there's a risk that they will get killed. We are not killing them. We have people who are coming out killing. We have abided by the regulations that they have imposed upon us. When we want to walk this way, they say, no, you're not marching this way, march. We always respected that. After the marches, these guys go in neighborhoods, killing people in their households, in the bathrooms, in their homes. What do? You get angry. When you get angry, what do? Protest, you have tried, what do? Civil unrest and riot. Sometimes it is justified. And once again, I am not a source, but I will cite once again Martin Luther King, who says that anger is an outright and genuine expression of frustration, and that riots are the language of the unheard. When you have spoken, not listened to, you have screamed and not listened to, you have done what you can do, protest, you're not, what do? You get angry, and you speak with force and you act with force. And that's what justifies the resistance, especially when you have lost lives in this, because when lives have been lost, you can't stop. You cannot stop for two reasons. One, you stop, the guy in front of you thinks that shoot them, they will back up. You should never give them that sign, that signal that you shoot me, I will run back to my house, because he will never stop what he's doing to you, lives for you, because every social struggle is a teamwork, and teams live by the code of dependability. And of course, no team can guarantee that you say absolute safety to every member, but no man left behind is the principle of every team. When you go to a war, when you go to a fight, when these guys have killed the people among you, you have to make sure that those guys who give their lives for the cause don't do it in vain. That is why movements like the FNDC have to keep on fighting, because we have a moral duty to keep up the struggle for the sakes of those martyrs who have made the ultimate sacrifice on our behalf. We have no right to betray those sacrifices. And to end, I'll say this. When a government decides to rebel against its people and terrorize it does it by a variety of means. Don't just say, oh, yeah, well, you started protesting and we didn't hear the government shooting at it. Yes, they started in different ways. They start using the means, some of them blatant, some of them not so ostentatious and very subliminal, which is some of the most insidious means, are like they used economics to cast some parts of the society out, to isolate some people and destroy people's well-beings and livelihoods, economic weapons, financial weapons, institutional weapons, discriminations and imprisonments and career destructions, political and social mistreatment. Naturally, this leads to civil resistance. It's perfectly normal. It's just a normal following. What is crucially needed is a pivot. What we need in Guinea and in elsewhere, of course, where these things happen, government indiscipline has taken root. What is needed is a policy pivot, is a policy change of our governments along the lines of the terms of the social contract that we have with them. We have social contracts. We give them a job to do, not to colonize us, okay? International also, they have signed in, they have to respect that. But these pivots, Nadia, I'm finishing in 1 minute,
yeah, okay? Okay.
But these pivots are very unlikely to materialize without a catalyst, without something, without a means of a shock. For a traditional political system to change, they stonewall, they refuse to change, they stonewall in their never-ending complacency. They see injustice, sometimes they actually instigate it, but they never act when you complain. They act like they don't see it. When you talk, they banalize it, say that, you know, it's trivialized. It say, no, this is nothing. The catalyst has to come in the form of indigenous political shocks, like we are doing. FNDC has decided to shock the system with the emergence and proliferation of an unbreakable group of freedom fighters and pro-social justice movements, okay? And coming together to create, and of course, individuals also coming together to create this movement. It can also come from outside, and we appreciate that. And Metro Bourdon, that was with us, is one of the cases of that. It can come from outside in the form of economic, financial pressures, institutions, Bretton Woods and beyond, and of course, judicial systems like the ICC. To serve, these institutions can serve the Bretton Woods institutions, any institution that has a means of pressure. They can serve as a wake-up call to shock the political system establishment into action. Much of this will be determined in Guinea, as far as we're concerned here, will be determined in the years and months ahead, with consequences not just for our generation, but for the future ones as well. And last, to conclude here, I'll say that I hope that this initiative of NPWJ will help shed the light on what is happening, what could happen, and what should happen in Guinea, as well as the steps that we can take to turn what is desirable today, which is the dream that we have today. That seems impossible to many people, and understandably so, because we are dealing with criminals who have killed before and they will kill again. The president said that he's willing to kill because people have been killed elsewhere and things happen. So why Guinea? They said, this is how he said it. I don't want to be misunderstood. He said, constitutions have been presented elsewhere. People died, but they happened. This means I will do it too. Today, it seems impossible for us to do it, but we want to turn this impossibility into the anti-feasibility and eventually into a reality for our people and give examples to other people across the world. Only then can we make this world a better place for each and every one of us. So I'm dedicating my participation today in this forum to the 97 dead, killed in Guinea, the freedom fighters killed in this country, the 97 that we know, and the countless ones that we don't know who are buried in mass graves all over this country. I'm dedicating my participation to them. The 200 more and more wounded that very, very badly. I have taken people to hospitals. People have died in my car, taking them to the hospital. They didn't have a knife, not a stick, nothing. They are civilians, innocent protesters. And the 287 prisoners today that we know of who are detained, including Unike Mange, of course, who are detained in concentration camps throughout the country. Some of them here in Guinea, in Conakry. Some of them, we say it's 600 kilometers from Conakry. But we don't really know. There are some who are detained that we don't know of. So to every single one that's fighting here for this, I am thanking you and honoring you. And we owe our lives to you. We will not betray you. We will never stop. Your lives.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much, Kader, for this very inspirational and for this very inspirational, emotional testimony. Thank you very much. So, Mamoudzou, please, maybe in 1 minute, very quickly, because time flies and we really have to. Mamoudzou, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, please, please. You can take the floor, please, in 1 minute.
Well, I'm just gonna last word for telling why Mr. Condé is gonna lose this fight and why the FNDC is gonna win this fight. So Mr. Condé has to know that the Guinean people have been killed in the past, but we did not stop fighting. We have been injured, but we did not stop fighting. We have been arrested, we did not stop fighting. So he can kill as many people as he wants. He can arrest in jail as many people as he wants, but we will not stop fighting. In 2009, when I was going to the stadium, I met a military guy who told me that if you go out tomorrow, the suffering we will witness will be the lesson that will tell us not to fight anymore. I told him, even if you kill 100 of people, we will keep fighting. And they did kill 100 of people, but we did not stop fighting. That's the first reason Mr. Konde must know that he has to stop this, and now. He better stop it, and now. Because if you don't, you just don't know what's going to be the end. And the second reason why he is going to lose this fight is that this fight is not just from the opposition party. This fight is for all the Guinean people who want to have a democracy. I voted for him. I have friends who voted for him. Fonike Mange is not in a political party. Sekuyaya is not. We are just a peaceful Guinean who just want to have a democracy in the country. And we will not stop fighting until Mr. Konde is out. And we want that to happen very soon and peacefully. Thank you.
I will ask William Bourdon, one of our panelists, to introduce himself and to make his presentation. Please, dear William, I give you the floor.
Thank you to give me the floor, my dear Nadia.
You're welcome.
I'm honored and happy to be with you. So I'm William Bourdon, and with my partner, Vincent Brengart. A couple of weeks ago, we lodged not exactly a complaint, but everybody understand me, in the hands of the prosecutor in La Hague. As you know, we lodge, we disclose in the hands of the chief prosecutor of the International Criminal Court a couple of weeks ago a document by which we asked to the prosecutor office to decide the opening of an examen préalable, preliminary review of the merits of this request. So this request is a result of a long, complex, huge work coming out from two travels in Conakry from me and Vincent, a strong, outstanding collaboration with my colleagues in Conakry, very courageous lawyers, and of course exploitation of all the international reports issued by various international institutions and NGO. I'm not going to list them. All this is on the table and very well known by all the participants. The main thing, what is at stake here is to demonstrate that what happened in Conakry and other cities is more than violation of human rights. Because as you know, all the violations of human rights are not all crimes against humanity. So our main job was to characterize the fact that the repetition, the orchestration, the planification of permanent assassination, murders, essentially in the street, during various manifestations these last years of Democrats, opponent journalists, young teenagers, absolutely unarmed, could be considered as a generalized or systematic attack in compliance of a political plan characterized by various international crime. So it's impossible, of course, to anticipate on the decision of the prosecutor office. Everybody must keep in mind the fact that there are some few people very well informed who seem to consider that prosecutor office in La Hague has been too complaisant and too shy regarding the permanent standing of Alpha Condé repeating that they were incapacity, judicial authority was incapacity to judge the suspect of the massacre in the National Stadium in September 2014. Despite the effort of various NGOs to try to convince the International Criminal Court that all this was propaganda and fake, for the moment, as long as I know, but perhaps it could change, and we can hope it will change, International Criminal Court prosecutor still considers that Guinea judicial authorities have the capacity, the means, and the willingness to try the suspect.
One question for you, dear William, sorry to interrupt you. Are you expecting the opening of an investigation of this series of murders you described, and how these murders, assassinations, and massive human rights violation can be described as political, according to you?
Because we have some proof, not of course extensive and exhaustive proof. This will be the job of prosecutor, does not be the job of NGO and victims, which can bring to the conclusion that all these massacres, assassination, essentially targeting the Pearl, create an obvious assessment, which is that the victims have been targeted because they were Pearl. They were simultaneously Pearl, opponents, and Democrats. And by the way, I must insist on the fact that the FNDC, the coalition, is not an ethnical movement. And the leaders of the movement, I met them in Conakry in Paris, had always the historical intuition and responsibility that they have to open their hands to other ethnies and to try to embrace a multi-ethnical movement. Just finish. Yes. Just to try to disarm the manipulation of, which is very classical and cynical tactic of despotic and dictatorship power, which always to discredit the wish of justice, the need of justice, permanently ethnicize the battle and the discussion. So we insist in this request on the fact that all these innocent were assassinated, were murdered, were stabbed to death because they were Pearl. But they were Pearl and simultaneously opponents, Democrats, and citizens who refuse the willingness, the full willingness of Alpha Condé to remain by all means in office. And what I mean by all means, with the price of blood of his population. So my intention, one, is to consolidate, if it's possible, our request, and you are all welcome to share with me any document, any information, any report to reannounce and to consolidate this initiative. Second, we intend, when it will be possible, to ask for a meeting with Mrs. Bensouda, I know her personally, and to explore with her and her team in what delay, in what schedule, in what condition the prosecutor office could accept to open a preliminary examination of the merits of our request. So this is the current statute of the initiative we have taken, and of course, everyone observed that very quickly Alpha Condé and his jurist have sent a letter to La Hague to denounce the opposition and FNDC initiative. The less we can say is that it was extremely shaky and cynical. And of course, all the observators, politicians, European international institutions are absolutely aware of what is at stake there. That is to say, a pure propaganda movement of a power which is at the agony and which is more and more marginalized by the international community. So that's the situation today. We have received some extremely moving and warm message of various Guinean citizens, anonymously or from the diaspora, applauding and encouraging our initiative, which proved, if it was needed, that effectively no peace without justice and no development, no growth, no state, no rule of law in Conakry and in Guinea, if justice, here international justice is deprived to fulfill its mission.
Yeah, well, thank you very much, William. As a final word, what can you say to the families of the casualties? What will be your message to these families, bearing in mind the reign of impunity and the denial of justice at the national level?
When I was in Conakry, and Vincent went to Conakry a couple of months ago, as everybody knows, when you met at night, in very gloomy district, very poor, mother, father who lost their son, their father, their brother, and who feel deeply in their soul that there is strictly no reason to hope, and you met people in a kind of desperate resignation. It's a main responsibility to choose your words. And as I said to various Guinean media at the occasion of some interview these last weeks, they still must hope, despite all the reasons sometimes to renounce to hope. This is the duty and of the International Criminal Court. This must be the mission of the office prosecutor to open investigation. And the only fact that we launch this request, as I can see it, as I can hear it, is a reason to hope. Because it breaks the silence, it maintains in the international public debate the atrocity committed in Guinea. Perhaps in a way invisible, it could be more or less deterring, which is always uncertain, but it could be more or less deterring for those who are in office in Conakry to enter in a nightmare of engrenage. But at the end, the fact that I met all this family who lost their relative and who lost hopes is for me a main responsibility to try to push those who will take the decision in La Hague to announce a preliminary examination as soon as possible, repeating again that it's a long process. It will take time, but at the end, as I said, time is a friend of the victim and should remain the friend of the victim.
Very much to our panelists, Kader, Mamoudzou, and William, for the outstanding, clear, and complete presentation. which enables everyone to take stock with human rights abuses and violations in Guinea. Thank you to all the viewers, and please do not forget to share this video with the hashtag Beyond COVID-19. Thank you to all, thank as well to No Peace Without Justice team, Nicolo, Francesca, Stefano, and Camilla for this excellent initiative. And please, please continue to help people by putting human rights violations on the spotlight in this difficult and sensitive time when they tend to be overshadowed. Thanks again, and please have a good day. Take care of you. Goodbye.